It's angry. It's trying to spit you off the road.
Awesome guys, but I'm like, man, are they sure?
You go to the track and run second, you come home gutted.
Completely blew my mind. Welcome to another episode of Stay Tuned Podcast. I'm stoked because today we have a 7-time Supercar champion. His name is Jamie Whincup. He's a really cool dude. I'm super pumped to have him here today. So some of the subjects that we're going to touch on is Jamie's racing career, then look into what his life is like now after racing, and also the relationship with Just Autos that Jamie and Triple 8 Racing have. So without further ado, let's get into it. Jamie Whincup, mate, how are you?
Good. Yeah. 50-minute drive up the road.
Yep. I'm super excited to have you here. Obviously for me, and getting some of your caliber in here is really cool. Definitely a big fan. I guess the big thing for us today is I just want to have a chat about your life story, how you got into racing, and I'd really be interested to see a lot of that. Obviously I was supposed to do a bit of research into you, and I was like, nah, I really just want to hear it first off the bat like everyone else and really understand, what got you into racing and all the, good bits in between. So if you can start us off, at the very start where it all began for you and go from there.
Yeah, no, great idea. Thanks for having me.
That's all right.
My racing career. So my uncle was involved in motorsport. He was a sports sedan driver. So I had a Chev Monza sports sedan and used to race all over Australia and a little bit of international stuff. Mm-hmm. My father was a mechanic, and I got to 7 years old, and I didn't really have an interest. Didn't have something to do on the weekend. I went to school, come home, worked with mum and dad in the backyard, cleaning the garden up each weekend, but didn't actually have a hobby or an interest. So both my father and my uncle brought me a go-kart when I was 7 years old, and what was started off to be a hobby, something to do on the weekend and an interest. So
is this in Queensland? Was this in Queensland?
This is in Melbourne. I grew up in Melbourne.
Yeah.
So my first half of my life, first 20 years was in Melbourne. Then, of course, I moved to Queensland when I got my drive with Triple 8 Race Engineering. So, 7 years old, go-kart, and I just got hooked from day one.
It's really funny. So I did a little bit of go-karting when I was a kid. Definitely not anything real professional. Yeah. But I remember it was so much fun. I used to run like J-Series and stuff like that, and it was super fun. Yeah. I used to love it that everyone was on the same playing field. So it was all skill and, definitely was really, really fun times. And it's really a shame where we are currently in Queensland, we don't really have those tracks around. Yeah. Otherwise, I think that it would definitely be a hobby that, I'd take up again. But so how long did you do go-karting for?
I reckon I did go-karting right until I was about 18 years old. So well over 10 years. And it was intense. It was like towards the end of my go-karting sort of era, we were racing 40 weekends of the year.
Yeah, so right.
I'd come home from school Monday night and then we were obviously racing the weekend, pull the kart apart. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every night was pulling the kart apart. You'd pull everything out of the trailer, like you'd have all your sprockets and all your lubes and your toolbox, and everything was filthy dirty from the go-kart track. Clean it all up, get the kart all ready to go, pull the engine off, get it serviced, service the car, all back in the trailer ready to go. And then generally on a Friday morning, we'd head to the go-kart track. I'd have a day off school, practice all day Friday, race Saturday, Sunday. The presentation would be at about 6 o'clock that night. We could be 4 or 5 hours from home.
Yep.
And then Dad and I would jump in the car, drive home. I'd be asleep, wake up when we got home, into bed.
Yep. School
the next day, and then Monday all
over again.
Yeah,
right.
And so I remember Dad was saying, "Mate, can you make sure you do your homework?" But I was always insisting on getting down to the garage, getting the go-kart ready to go for the next weekend. And as I say, it was probably 40 weekends of the year. Yeah, we'd be racing go-karts flat out around tracks.
So you find that you had that passion there, as obviously from a young kid with go-karting. Yeah. But did you ever need to be pushed, or was it something that you just naturally were like, "No, this is what I want to do. This is all that I want to do"?
Yeah, I didn't. No, I was never pushed. Never needed to, to be motivated to get to the track the next weekend. That's basically all I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's cool.
And my whole focus was getting to the track, and then there was that competition element, which for me was a very healthy thing. I look back on it now, and I guess the question is, would I put my kids through go-karts in the future? And the answer to that's 100%. Yeah, it was a healthy environment. I was spending the weekends with my parents around other good people, and we were competing. And it was, you know, the learning you get through competing with other people is a good thing.
I guess the thing is, that's a good thing about sport in general. It definitely sets you up for, you know, morals around it and so forth. There's some good learnings to have with all of that.
For sure.
So you started off with, obviously, it would have been J Series and then Clubman. Is that sort of, and then it goes up from there? I don't really know where it goes from there. Is it? There's a few other series.
It's all changed now. It's all changed now, but 100% when I started, you had your J, which is a Yamaha. I think it's a water pump originally.
It's a water pump motor. You're exactly right. Two-stroke water pump motor. I was surprised when I first worked that out. Good little engine.
Great engine. The only issue with it was the older ones were the better ones. So anything with a real low serial number would generally had half a horsepower more than than the later engine, you know. But that
was the edge.
But those J motors and Yamaha RS motors, those original Yamaha water pumps that were go-kart engines, they served karting really well.
They did
for decades. It's moved on now. You know, a newer model, newer engine. But no, it was a great thing. And as you say, it was all the same. You just went out there and whoever drove the best generally won the race.
So go-karting. So how did you go with your go-karting career? Obviously, you must have been pretty successful with that to get recognised to move up from there. Did you go into, like, say, Formula Ford, or was that something that you went into, or where did you go from there?
The path was, the supercar driver path is slightly different, but if there was a general transition, it was go-karts, Formula Ford, then there was the Super 2. Super 2 development series, and then of course main game. So I was lucky enough to go-karts, Formula Ford for a couple of years, and then I got a gig straight in the main game in 2002 with Gary Rogers. So I missed that Super 2 era, which was lucky enough for me.
So rookie straight in.
Yeah, well, I pretty much sent my parents broke driving a Formula Ford. You know, that 2 years of Formula Ford was it was huge cost, and I didn't come from a wealthy family, but mum and dad, you know, invested as much as they possibly could to make it work. So I think my Formula Ford career was, you know, a year of Formula Ford was around 120,000 back then. So they tipped in about 60 or 70,000 out of their own pockets, which was a lot of money
back then.
Considering we had a small printing press of 2 or 3 people that was, you know, printing off business cards and letterheads week in, week out. So that $70,000 from my racing career was huge. The rest was made up of sponsorship and prize money and whatnot. So I got to the end of my Formula Ford career 2 years in, and it was either be turned professional and be able to race cars without having to fund it, or probably take over the dad's printing press and be a press printer for the rest of my life.
So you pretty much knew what you wanted to do.
So it was do or die, and thankfully for me, I got that opportunity in the main game. And
so what led to that opportunity? How did that come about?
The main game opportunity? It was right place, right time. You know, doesn't cost anything to look good, so to speak. Course, so you know, the Formula Ford was immaculate. We had our shirts on. We looked apart, and we made sure every time we hit the track,
that was the case.
Everything was presentable for sure, and we were quite successful as well. I won the Formula Ford Championship in 2002. So with the team, with the supercar team owners, they're looking at the lower categories to find out where their talent's coming from. And there are a few teams in pit lane that will take on a young rookie. You know, they're looking for the next best thing. So I was at the right place, right time. Gary Rogers was looking for a driver, and he took me on for 2022. 2023, sorry, which was fantastic.
And so I guess with obviously the career in the V8 Supercars, once you started to step into that, obviously things started to change in a big way for you. And obviously there was a lot of challenges with, you know, going through that. Can you explain some of the challenges that you're faced with and, you know, the outcome there?
For sure. It was a rocky start. So I got in 2003 championship, and the year didn't plan out as well as I would have liked. We just didn't get the results for one reason or another. I'll say that the car wasn't that good, and team will say the driver wasn't that good. It was probably a combination of both. You know, it was I was in my rookie season.
There's so much pressure. Like being a rookie, like you must have felt the weight on your shoulders, going, "Hey, I've got to prove myself here." And
huge. Yeah, you're in this car that's 650 horsepower. Like I've just come out of a Formula Ford, 115 horsepower on a good day, into a 650 horsepower.
Do you find that the transition into that? Obviously, there's a lot more power, and you know that's one thing, but the whole setup of the car is completely different. Like trying to find the limits of when to brake and how far you can push that car. You really just got to push it until you find that point where you're off the track.
I think that's trial and error. That's learning. And you can't find the limit unless you step over it every now and again.
Were you more excited than scared, I guess, getting into that, going, hey, this is where I want to be, and just you went out sort of pushing those boundaries pretty quickly? Or
I was never concerned about my safety, or I was never... My whole focus was how do I perfect this craft, and how do I go faster? That was what it was all about. And no, you're trying to find that limit, and occasionally you step over that limit.
And now you know.
On the good days, you end up in the gravel trap. On the bad days, you end up in the fence. And you've got 4 or 5 mechanics working all the way through the night to get the car back on the track the next day, or whatnot. But unfortunately, at that time, I had a rough run in 2003, and I got sacked at the end of the year. And I was then known as the young kid that had been given an opportunity that hadn't made the most of it. I was sort of now blacklisted. So I was a young kid.
How do you come back from that? Like that must have been pretty hard. Because the end of obviously 2003, you're like, man, what am I going to do here?
Yeah, for sure.
Self-doubt, everything else comes in.
I was looking back at the Dad's printing press. I'm
sure,
like, hey, I've got to earn a living. I had a V8 Commodore at the time, and I had to fill the thing up with fuel. So it was what I do. I was at a bit of a crossroads, but racing was my passion, and I'm not much of a salesperson. I'm not big on sales, but so I had to do that. The awkward, embarrassing thing, just ringing the team owners every week, saying, "Is there an opportunity for me to come and drive? Can you give me 5 laps? Just on a test day, give me 5 laps." I knew I never lacked confidence. I knew if I could get in the car and get an opportunity, I could make the most of it. So I just did that awkward thing, ringing around, being at the race meetings, standing at the back of the pits like a spare prick at a wedding, just sort of being there, being around, having a presence, and then eventually just got my way back in, got a test drive, and then got an opportunity to drive at the dual driver events, Sandown and Bathurst, with Larry Perkins. So I got that opportunity and then got back in full time.
Even that test drive, that would have been quite nervous because you're like, hey, I've just here's my chance. Like I'm losing the opportunities here. Even the pressure of those sort of drives, you go, hey, I'm still grinding it here to get back in.
The good thing was I didn't overthink it too much. I had, as I said, I didn't lack confidence. I was a little bit arrogant, a little bit young, cocky kid in a way. So I knew I rocked up to those days going, no, I can do a good job, you know what I mean? And all I was thinking was how can I go faster than the current driver they had? So, but looking back now, I'd probably think, they were pivotal moments. There was a lot on the line there. But at the time, it was like just get me in the car. Got back in with a lower base team or a newer team in Tasman Motorsport, and then I was in the right place, right time. We had a great result at Bathurst in 2005 in Tasman Motorsport, and then Roland Dane, the head of Triple 8 Race Engineering, was looking for a young kid that was cheap, that could stay out of trouble all year, that could team up with Lowndes to win Bathurst. That was the plan for me. So I got that Triple 8 drive. We won Bathurst that year, which was fantastic. But I didn't like the script of stay out of trouble all year and just team up with Lowndes to win Bathurst. I wanted to win my own races and built on it from there. Got a great group of mechanics and engineers around me, and sit here now with a few race wins under the belt. Yeah,
definitely. How did that work with the dynamics between you and Lowndes in that sort of scenario?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. So I joined Triple 8 and Craig Lowndes was there. He was the icon. He was the superstar.
100%, I remember as a kid watching him a lot.
He was the man. And I had plenty of people before I went to Triple 8 say, mate, don't go there. Lowndes had a different teammate the last 8 years. He's going to make you look ordinary. You're going to be back on the blacklist. But little
challenge accepted.
Yeah, little cocky Jamie goes, no, I'll be all right. I'll have a crack. But yeah, I got there. But Lowndesy's a ripper. He's what you see is what you get. He literally helped me out big time. You know, wasn't threatened at all. Wasn't like, oh, better protect my skills or my fan base, so to speak. He was no, he brought me into the team, and he was fantastic. Couldn't have asked for a better teammate.
Yeah, awesome.
Even when there were times where he was getting towards the end of his career, and I was sort of at my peak, and you know, there wasn't a sense of jealousy or anything like that with Lowndes. He was just happy for the team to be doing well, and of course, and you know, it moved on.
Progression, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. What do they call it? What do they call it when the changing of the guard? You know what I mean? He was just happy that there was a changing of the guard and the new crop was coming through. And I learnt a lot from Lowndesy, and you know that. Towards the last 3 years of my career, I was getting smashed by SVG. You know, he got on a roll. He was at the peak of his career, and man, he was going to winning every race. You know, when I was second or third, which was hard to handle. And I remember thinking back, well, wow, I did exactly the same thing to Lowndesy, you know. So he handled it really well, and
you're struggling.
And I'm like, I got to be Lowndes in this scenario, you know, where you got the young kids stepped up, you know, and made the sport better, which is fantastic. And we're seeing it again now with these, you know, I've got a 25, I've got 21 and a 25-year-old on the book. So a couple of young kids. So really grateful for them. But it was a good dynamic. Couldn't have asked for a better teammate.
Yeah, Lowndesy.
Awesome. He was a great guy, and we were able to win some races together. And he's still part of Triple 8 as well. We've got a Super Cheap Auto wildcard entry where he heads up that. So great he's still in the Triple 8 family, and great, you know, that he's still a teammate.
I think it's so cool that even the fact that you guys are retired in bits and pieces, you can just jump in a car and do some races and stuff. That's so cool. Like, it's like go-karting all over again, but doing it when you're later. Just big boy.
One day we won't, you know what I mean? One day we won't be able to do that, but still, you know, still in our 40s, being able to hang on to being able to race the biggest race of the year, it's very, very cool.
And talking about sort of the guys in the industry, was there particular guys that you idolised as you come into the sport? Was the guys that you looked up to, or you sort of seen them as competitors and equals, and you know, you're like, hey, I'm going to trump you guys? Like, but surely you got to have that sort of passion about in that drive to be like, hey, to me, they're just, you know, normal guys. I'm here to win, you know.
For sure. Like, I think the normal thing is for you to have an idol, which is a racing driver, but
you want to be like,
I followed Formula One. I watched Formula One. I was a big Nigel Mansell fan back in the day, but I never had a supercar idol, so to speak, and I never really had. I'd never be one to line up for an autograph. Really, I love watching from afar. But there's no way I would. I didn't want to meet that person. I didn't want to get their autograph. I didn't want to have any. I just wanted to sit and watch and enjoy their craft, so to speak. So that was me. That's quite different to normal, but that was certainly me. And it was all. As I say, I was just trying to better myself, and I knew while I looked at the current supercar drivers and appreciated what they do, I always had that self-belief that, hey, I can do that, and I can do that better. So I just wanted to get in and get that opportunity.
So one thing I've always wondered is, obviously everyone has a different set of skills, and I've also seen race car drivers over the years with different weather conditions, right? And it'd be raining and they excel, and you see guys drop off as, you know, definitely when it rains, it's an equaliser of power and performance. But is there a certain condition, like obviously optimal condition would be, you know, having a dry track and so forth, but is there the conditions where you're in the car and it starts to rain, you're like, yes, this is awesome, I love this? Like, is there any of those times, or is it like, oh my God, this is going to be hard work?
Like, I don't think anyone really loves the rain. Some guys and girls do better in the rain than they do in the dry, but I don't know anybody who's hanging for it to wake up and be pissing me rain. I'm about to get in a race car, you know, because you know, on a normal, when you're racing a car, of course you're concentrating on your braking marker through the corner. But once you get onto the straight, there's your time to have a look at your instruments and see what's going on, analyse where you are. You know, are you catching the guy in front? What's going on behind? What lap of the race? How much have I got enough economy to get to the end? What's my tyre life like? You know, you're analysing that stuff down the straights. When it rains, you've got no time down. You're wheeling the thing. You're wheeling the thing down the straight. You're trying to get out of the way of puddles. You know, the car's trying to spit you off just going in a straight line in the wet. So no, it's normally a a gnarly scenario in the wet, especially at a street track where you hit something and you're slightly wide, boom, you're into the fence weekend over. But it does show, the guys and girls with the big skill. Of course, you need huge skill to be able to handle a car that's just trying to wheel spin, just trying to spit you off the track in the wet conditions. So they're a good thing, great for spectators and make good TV.
Yeah.
But your job,
it's
hard enough as it is, but it's twice as hard when the conditions are either wet or it's cold or dark, or there's also there's oil on the track or whatnot. That just makes the.
I guess for the spectator, I always like when it rains because it's interesting. There's always offs and it's harder, and you see the lap times drastically drop down. The next minute, everyone's sort of putting around, and it's really cool to try and see them grab an advantage over the next guy. And some have it wide really well in the wet, and they can definitely know that point. You know, but So, is there a track out there that you would say that, or a race in particular that is something in the back of your mind that is iconic for you, that you were like, hey, this for me was the holy grail, like I was really happy with this race or the performance here?
Well, we're very lucky. We got one of the best tracks in the world in Bathurst, which is, anyone that doesn't know, it's a country.
I've driven it on my simulator heaps of times, so I know all about it.
You haven't driven around in real life?
No, never.
Oh yeah, you just got to do a lap. It's 60k speed limit, but the thing about Bathurst is it's the crazy terrain.
Yeah,
you wind your way all the way up this hill. You got this 200 kilometre an hour minimum, crest over the top of the hill as you're doing those Reed Park, McPhillamy Park, and then you drop off the hill and then all the way down that 1 kilometre Conrod Straight. Yep. So it's a top 5 circuit in the world. So we're very lucky to have that here in this country, which is great. But while we love Bathurst, and by far that's the best,
the iconic race,
the iconic track and the iconic race, the race with the most history. It's like the Melbourne Cup. It's just a Melbourne Cup's another horse race, but it's because of the history around that event. That's a similar concept with Bathurst as well, which just makes it so special. But I've got a lot of connection to street tracks. When you get it right through a street track like the Gold Coast, and for me in particular, I had quite a connection with the Townsville street track.
Okay, yeah. Because that's a big event as well.
Huge event, massive in country New South Wales. Where I'm talking about country Queensland. Everyone comes from all over the state, really, and of course all over the country, because everyone wants to get out of Melbourne and Sydney in those colder months to get to Townsville. Sunny. And I generally had a good run up there as well. Just loved the event and loved the track. It was a bit of a hybrid. It was street track. Some of the circuit the public drive on all the time, but then they had a parkland which they could literally make racing corners with through the park when they originally built the place. So it was almost like a race track, but then a street track all in one.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Had definitely a connection to the Townsville Street event.
Yeah, cool. So was there any type of other racing that you looked at or wanted to do through your career? Like, I mean, obviously, there's guys that take a different channel to get to Formula One or, India, whatever it may be, or even rally. Was there anything else that you looked at and went, hey, or was it, straight off this was the way that you wanted to go down, V8 Supercar? Obviously in Australia, Supercar is the holy grail. Yeah. But was there anything else there, or?
I never planned too far ahead. I never had this big dream of this is where I wanted to go. Yep. I was just focusing on the next race. That was all through go-karting. In my go-karting days, I thought I was just going to race go-karts for the rest of my life. It was just on to the next race, on to the next championship or whatever it was. It was just, that was the way it was. And then it wasn't until Dad and my uncle took me to Uncle's factory one night, and then here's a Formula Ford, Oh, wow. Oh, is this mine, is it? Yeah, how good. Yeah, we're going to go Formula Ford racing now. And then it wasn't until...
what age was that when you go to Formula Ford? So you would have been...
I was 16. Yep. I reckon I could have been late.
So were you doing go-karting and Formula Ford at the same time?
There was 1 year there where it was a double up. Yeah. Did some karting and did a little bit of... Mainly just testing the Formula Ford. But I had my Formula Ford. The Formula Ford, only 115 horsepower, but still, it'd still do, 240k down say Conrod Straight. So it was a fast car. and I had that before I could get my L plates on the road. So I'd had 2 years of racing Formula Ford around the country before I actually got my Ps to be able to drive on the road legally. So no, I was always just next race, and then racing Formula Ford. I just thought I was going to race Formula Ford for the rest of my life until I got a supercar, and that was always the plan. So, no, I never looked on. Of course, there was a couple of years there where I had a bit of a look at the NASCAR career.
Yes,
and that had some interest. I think I'd won a couple of supercar championships. I thought, should I go to NASCAR? The opportunity didn't present itself. Plus, I didn't really want to live in America.
of course.
I'm quite patriotic and love this country of ours, So, and I'm quite close to my family as well. So, those three factors meant I stayed in Australia, and then just furthered my supercar career. And within 4 or 5 years of the end of my career, I decided I still wanted to stay in motorsport for a long time. So that's when I brought into Triple 8 as a 10% shareholder, and then I've chipped away at that over time as well. So
that was obviously like going into a completely different direction, obviously from race car to now potentially, getting your own race team. That's a completely different ball game. So there would have been, that would have been an eye opener. Obviously, you've seen it from one side as a driver, which is unique as well, because you've seen the inside of, being a driver, and now you're seeing it from the business side. So again, I can only from business side of things, the challenges are huge. How was that? How was going into Triple 8 that side? Obviously you've seen the opportunity there. You're like, look, this is something I want to do. And now, where are we at now?
It was good. The factor was I just wanted to be involved in motorsport. I knew my racing career, my driving career would come to an end at some stage. So I knew I wanted to be involved in motorsport a lot longer than my driving career. So the natural progression was, to be a team owner. So.
It's pretty overwhelming. Obviously we've done, we've been down at Triple 8, and we'll get into that in a second, but, it's amazing the facility you got down there. It's huge. And I didn't know there was so much that was involved with the team, like the race team, from the engineering side of things to, all the people involved. It's a big deal.
All race teams are different. Some teams just buy a car and all the componentry and just have the bare bones and go and race it. But we're a little bit different. We've got a full design and manufacturing team. So we've designed the latest supercar, 4 supercars, and we basically manufacture everything we can. There's things like tyres and brakes and race seats and whatnot that we don't manufacture, but pretty much all the fabricated parts and machine parts on the car we've manufactured in-house as well. So we're 65 plus people, which has expanded 30-40% in the last 3 years, so and still expanding. So it's a big operation. Big operation for a racing driver who has run a couple of car washes and cafes and whatnot to move into an organisation that's 65 plus people deep. But it was another challenge.
Of course,
I knew the industry. I knew the sport really well. I got a huge passion for engineering and manufacturing. It was a great challenge.
It was a win-win.
I've had the P plates on for the last couple of years, but now I feel like I'm really in a position to keep the trajectory going and take the next step in what is the 20. We had our 20th anniversary of Triple 8 Race Engineering Australia at the end of last year. So now we're looking for that. What we're going to do in that next 10 years, which is exciting.
I met you only probably a couple of months ago for the first time. Obviously, with Just Autos, we've always been struggling from the design point of manufacturing a part and really understanding the science behind it. Because we're always analysing data, we wanted to really know by trying to solve a particular problem, how we achieve that and doing it with, I guess, science. So it was just by chance that my manager had a good friend that worked at Triple 8 and was talking to George, I believe he's workshop manager, and said, hey, this is something that we could probably talk about. And at the time, it was to do with designing an intake pipe for the 300 series. Obviously, we knew there was some problems with it and we had some issues. Obviously, come down and met with you guys, and straight away from the start, it was amazing the connection that we had and went through. And I believe that, you know, the biggest thing for us was the morals that you had set in place was, hey, if we're going to do something with you guys, it needs to be done the best. It needs to have everything spent at it. We can't do anything that's second grade. And straight away, I was like, that was music to my ears. I think having a company that can go in and say, hey, I want only the best and I won't put my name to nothing else, you know, for us, that was great. So obviously we met and went through that process. What I was very impressed with is the team of engineers that you have at Triple 8. And now obviously we're talking about not a race car, but yes, an intake pipe for a car that's a touring family car. It's not ever going to see the track, you know. And here we are designing parts for that. And what was really cool to see is the boys going through that design process and coming up with an intake pipe, and then, you know, going through that process and fitting it on the car. And there's so many things in between it. I guess for me, what opened my eyes was this is now no longer obviously just grabbing a pipe, bending it up, putting it on the car and hoping for the best. This is talking about a process that happens over months where it's equations and obviously 3D printing and modelling and stuff like that to get to that. And that's something that you can see why your race team is so successful, is because this process is applied to the same thing in the cars, and all we're doing is applying it to a part for, you know, a 300 series. So hats off to you for obviously, you know, what you guys do. You definitely are the leaders in what you are doing. I'm really appreciative of the fact that you've given us the opportunity to work with you guys to be able to build this pipe. It's been a you know, journey understanding, and I'm looking forward to what that future holds with that particular side of things. Obviously the four-wheel drive market, you guys are sort of coming into now, having a look at it, and from a manufacturing side of things, you've obviously got the workshop to facilitate a lot of different options moving forward. How does that make you feel? Like, is that something that you're excited about?
Well, designing and manufacturing automotive parts, that's what we do. You look at what is racing, you know, what, of course there's that, what you see on the TV on the weekend, which is try to go around circles quicker than everybody else, and then use the tools you got on the day, your tyre pressures and your spring rates and your roll bars, to try to make the car handle better on the day. But really, racing is a group of people building a car, taking it to the track, racing their mates and trying to get to the finish line before everyone else. That's the concept. And then if you don't do that, if you come second or third or fourth, then you go back to the workshop, you pull this car apart and go, how can I make it better? So the last 20 years, that's what we've been doing. And there's been no element of the car that we haven't actually had to deep dive into to go, how can we improve this part? The misconception out there is that motorsport, they're just about it's 100% about performance. And while performance is by far the biggest factor, you know, we're trying to build this performance part, reliability, the biggest cost in motorsport is a DNF.
Yeah, for sure.
Did not finish. So you have to have reliability. So while you need this extreme performance, but you have to have reliability. And then you can't just use the most exotic materials or the most exotic processes or have this real complex machining technique or anything like that. If you can build it, if you can produce the same performance and reliability and make the part cheaper and more economical to build, then 100% you head in that direction as well. And there's quite a lot of parts on the new Gen 3 car where they're built to a price point also. So not just purely about performance.
So there's an extra element you're putting in there.
There's an extra element there. We have to build this thing to a price point, and it's got to be able to be mass produced at a good rate. So as I said, there's nothing on the car, engine car, that we haven't actually had to deep dive into. We can spend a month building this car, and we've got this amazing product. You go to the track and run second, you come home gutted. And you sit in the boardroom going, "What? This is not acceptable. Why? What happened?"
Looking at the data, trying to work it out.
Looking at the data, where were we insufficient, and then what factors could contribute to that? And then let's go away and build a better part to make sure that we improve in that area.
I was amazed by obviously the machine with even the pedal boxes and heaps of different things. Like, there's so many componentries that you're like, hey man, made this. No, that's in the bin. Like, there's the new one. Like, it's people don't see that. Like, there's there's a lot that goes in there.
There's been tens of millions of dollars worth of sponsors' money has gone into R&D and development to make our cars faster than the guys down the road.
For sure, but that's what it's about.
Competitive. And then there's 14 teams all trying to do the same thing, trying to build a better car, take it to the racetrack. And then, of course, there's that weekend element where you try to outrace everyone on the day. But we call it the unfair advantage. You want to take the best car to the track and have that unfair advantage where your car is faster than everybody else's. So there's 20 years of race car knowledge and tens of millions of dollars of R&D being spent in building this car. It would be it'd be a bit of a shame just to waste that, so to speak, on just a couple of race cars and our cars and our customers. So there's a huge opportunity there where we can be able to work and collaborate with companies like yourself and people like yourself, where we can try to take some of that knowledge
and put it to something of good use with,
put it to something of good use for, and why are we doing it? It's only ever going to be a small, a fraction of what we do at Triple 8 Race Engineering. But, if there's your customers, if it improves their performance, or it means that they get to the next town quicker and get the counter meal, or they got to a place where they couldn't normally have got to, or it meant reliability, so that their trip around the top of the country was a good one,
more pleasurable,
more pleasurable. Then that's what it's all about for us, for that moment where the performance or the reliability of your car puts a smile on your face. That's what it's all about. So hopefully, with our collaboration, we can deliver that to
for sure,
to as many customers as we can.
When the prototypes at the time Piper were testing, and I remember being downstairs and going through and having them on the cars and testing them, I was so excited to try them out. And there were some things there where I was very skeptical at the start, speaking to some of the engineers that you got there, awesome guys, but I'm like, man, are they sure? And I had self-doubt because I'm like, man, what they're telling me is it goes a little bit backwards from what I originally knew, right? And it opened my eyes a little bit, and they're like, no, look, this is how it is, trust me. And I'm like, yeah, cool, let's do this. And not only was the pipe basically ticked all the boxes that we're trying to get, there was the main one was around this surging problem, and it definitely, without a doubt, solved that surging issue. And that to me was that completely blew my mind. But the performance gain that we got out of that pipe, that was something that was sort of icing on the cake. It was not what we were chasing, and that's something that we're seeing as well. But look, hats off to you. You got a great team down there. Obviously, it shows with the cars, but I'm super pumped and excited to be working with you guys on these little projects. So it's working out well.
And there's obviously many aspects where the OEMs do it very, very well, So we don't touch that. But if there's you guys coming to us with, hey, we've got this issue, although we haven't had that issue with a four-wheel drive, so to speak, we've no doubt come across something similar in the racing world, and the fundamentals of fixing that are probably most likely going to be the same. So through that knowledge that we've generated through the 20 years and that investment that's been made, of course, if we can come up with some solutions, happy days.
So we're super excited because obviously there's a lot of other little things that we are going through that process and talking about at the moment. So what the future holds is, for me, it's super exciting and it's an opportunity. So it's really cool.
Good.
So the manufacturing process of the Interpipe, can you just give us a little bit of an insight from start to sort of finish that process? Because obviously the viewers don't really know what goes on there. It'd be really good to give them that insight into what happens there. Yeah,
sure. So you've come to us with the intake manifold.
Yep.
And so then we started, and you said there's a surge issue, which with that intake manifold. So we come up with a design brief on what we need to achieve with that design, and then the team go away and just literally on a bit of paper come up with solutions on how we can redesign this part.
I've seen they were starting to reverse engineer the factory part and work through that process. And then I remember the car being there with dots all over it with 3D scanning and understanding and imaging and stuff like that.
So understand the part first and foremost, and then come up with solutions on how to fix the problems that that you guys are facing. So come up with that design brief, and then we design that part, and then we'll test that part via a CFD. use software.
The software is amazing. When they started showing me that, I was just blown away. It's amazing.
It doesn't tell the full story, but it certainly puts you in the right direction on is this part going to perform. And then we've done some plastic printing. So we've just printed off the part and then handed it back over to yourself to be able to stick on the dyno and test it in real life. So it's while the CFD is fantastic and it's great, you still need to be able to test that thing in real life.
Yeah, of course.
And then make sure there's reliability there. Just keep going over and over and R&Ding it to make sure that the thing is going to be as reliable as it needs to be.
The conversations around material for reliability and everything else was huge conversations back and forth, and it's amazing. I don't think people realise the conversations that go on with looking into other materials and what's best and why. And we've got so many other elements with temperatures and a whole lot of range of things, even till it comes down to fitment and everything. So it's really cool to see that we go through all these processes to get to this result going, hey, we believe this is the best because of all of these other things that we looked at.
And we come up with a fantastic part that improves performance, reliability, and get rid of that surge that
everyone hates.
Everyone hates, exactly.
So no, that's good. So obviously with the manufacturing process, you'll see that with the race cars on a general race weekend, you'll redesign a part, you get it out on the track, and then you'll find that you're something like an intake pipe, for example. Is it the point where you're making the most minute sort of changes to that and trying to get that sorted? I think the boys were explaining to me about exhaust, for example, and the materials you're using, and then taking out small amounts of the exhaust to get the weight down and stuff like that. This wasn't in V8 Supercars. This was on obviously other models of racing, but it was just an example showing to you keep pushing the boundaries because it's that weight versus power performance thing, and it's like, hey, build it so it's reliable, and then come back to the drawing board and let's see if we can shave some weight off this, and go through there.
For sure. So the changes that we make now these days, certainly the supercar, they are minute.
Yeah. All the point ones and twos.
Yeah, but that's what we're looking for now. We didn't get it that wrong to start with, that there's 10% gains, or 2-3% gains. It's all these small 1%ers which we're looking for, whether that be a slight weight reduction, although remember there's a minimum weight for the car as well. So you don't actually get, if you save 100 grams, you don't actually get that 100 grams. You need to put that 100 grams back on the car with lead, but it's probably lower than what it was going to be. So you just get this minute centre of gravity change. You know what I mean? And the lower your centre of gravity, the better. So you always build a race car as light as you possibly can, and then stick the lead on the floor at the bottom, so you get that COG gain. So no, we haven't got it that wrong to start with. There's any big gains everywhere, and we just kept chipping away, and we had the same car for the last. Before COVID, we were going to change to Gen 3. I think it was late 2020. We were going to change to Gen 3, but it never happened until the start of 2023. Yeah. So there was two and a half years there where the old car was still in use. But the development, we couldn't stop developing. Otherwise, we would have got steamrolled by our opposition. So we kept developing that car, and it just kept moving forward. Whether that's in wheel nut technology, to get the wheel on and off quicker, or it's just absolutely make the thing lighter, so the center of gravity is lower, or just pure performance, let it go through the air better, reliability. Even if we win a weekend and it all looks like we're a duck on water and everything looks all smooth from the outside, we still come up with a full A4 sheet of things that
could be better.
What could be done, and then of course that goes from the boardroom table out to the design team to redesign those parts, and then of course remanufactured and then back on the race car for the next weekend. So every race meeting there are at least a dozen items. It could be as simple as a tube. We cut a tube to 50 mil. We're now going to cut it 40, or it could be a brand new wheel nut, or it could be who knows. It could be drastic changes, or it could be small. But every weekend we just kept moving forward and forward. And over that 20-year journey, as I say, there's nothing on the race car that we haven't heavily looked at and come up with a solution on how to improve that part. You know, so. I don't think there's going to be much. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's going to be much you're going to come to us with that we haven't already spent a heap of time and effort into fixing on the race car already. And you might think, well, you know, a race car is so much different to a four-wheel drive.
Of course.
Yes, in some way it is, but in many ways they're quite the same. You know?
4 wheels to drive down the road.
For sure, yeah. Like while an axle tramp might be very, very different to a rear wheel shutter that we have in a race car.
Yeah.
The things that we do to fix that shutter in the race car will most likely probably going to be applied in the same way to four-wheel drive.
And I guess that's the cool thing. I guess you know, something that I look at is that, yes, as much as I have a passion, I watch racing. I'm a big fan of Formula One, but you know, watching racing in general, I love obviously the point ones that they're all trying to get, because you know, that's where it comes down to, and that's what's exciting, is that you can see that the teams that are really pushing forward and the effort. So that's pretty cool.
And you find a dozen of those. You know, you do a great job. It's all in the car. You take the car to the track, and your opposition have found 14, 15. You know what I mean? And they've beaten you by a tenth of a second over the week, or in qualifying, or beaten you by a second over the race, and you come home gutted.
Is that like more enjoyable for a race car driver, knowing that you have cars that are so very similar to your opposition? Because obviously you see with different forms of racings, they have different rulings and stuff like that, and you can see some that are, you know, extremely, you know, ahead of the rest, and it's sort of like it becomes a point where you're not really racing them, you're sort of racing a mid or a backpack of people. But you know, is it more fun as a driver because now it's getting so close, it's more skill based, you know what I mean? Or, you know, as in teams, so team performance like tyre management, and then like obviously mechanics and everyone else working together more as a team to get the result, other than just the performance of a driver or a performance of, say, the cars exceeding a higher performance. And now it's closer. Well,
the bigger the rule book gets, the less opportunity you got, and the more those 1%ers make a difference. So it's challenging. And I always say, you know, the most technical form of sport are the simplest ones. You know, the 100-metre sprint. You think, you know, how hard is it? Just run from there to there. It's basic. Like a NASCAR oval. You know, you're just going around circles. But those sports are the most technical of all time, because you to try to find an advantage over your opposition is bloody hard to find. There's just these small increments make a big difference. So it's not fun at the time chasing those little 1%ers. You know, you're just grinding it out. Just trying to get there. R&D, you know what it's like. You take one step back to make two steps forward. So that's not fun, but massively rewarding at the end. You know that. You know, to get a result on a race, on a race weekend, it's a money can't buy experience. That's months of blood, sweat, and tears, burning the midnight oil to get there. For that moment, for that, you know, that money can't buy experience. And the trophy's worth $100. You know, the cost of the trophy or the prize money. It's not about that. It's the journey. It's looking down pit lane. We've all done absolutely everything we can, put it all on the line. And there's only one person can stand on the top step of the podium, you know. So that's that's what gets us back.
How does it feel now that obviously it's your team that, you know, obviously I've seen, you know, just recently they're doing really well and so forth, and it's fantastic. But now it's your team you're looking at. Is it a different feeling to oppose being on the podium as the race car driver, or now it's the team and you're like, hey, that's my team sort of thing?
The feeling's not the same, but the satisfaction's the same. For sure. Like, of course, there's huge satisfaction when I'm the one that's crossed the line, that stands on the podium. In some way, standing on the podium, it's almost a bit embarrassing. You're up there looking like you're the Lone Ranger, but you know too well it's taken 65 people to get this car. So you stand there almost, and sometimes you're a bit embarrassed.
So you're feeling like, hey, I don't really deserve to be here. Everyone else should be with me.
There should be 50 people here, but hey, someone's got to be the representative. Of course, so most of the time I'm up there as a representative of the group effort that's gone on. Because that was my role.
I do like that. That's cool.
But no. The satisfaction on seeing our young fella Brock Feeney, you know, win his first race, or winning a race or a championship as a team owner, it's just every bit just as satisfying as actually me crossing the line myself.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is awesome.
Do you still go-kart or anything like that for fun? Like, is it something that your mates call you up and go, hey, we're going for a blast or something, and get your cart out and you go? Or is that
I still get out in my cart at least once a month.
Really?
But
cool.
mainly because I love it. But now I spend majority of my time sitting at the office desk.
Yep.
And I'm still an endurance driver, so I'm still signed up for Sandown and Bathurst.
Yep.
So I can't have 10 months off and then expect to get in at Sandown, and the thing I'll be so far behind the car, it's ridiculous. So in a way, karting, jet skiing, all those sorts of things, and hand-eye coordination, anything with a throttle and a brake, is a good thing, So yeah, definitely. Still
I guess what you've got now is that it's probably the best of both worlds, really, isn't it? Because not having you're obviously as a business owner with Triple 8, and then you get to still race, but not have the pressure of being racing, every single sort of month or season, and then now you can sort of go-kart and you can do bits and pieces in between. I guess that's sort of a happy place.
It's a good, it's a good transition, and it's a good thing about our sport. With say if you're a footy player, you generally got to go pretty much cold turkey straight after. It
must be hard.
That must be massively hard mentally.
Yeah.
So the good thing about our sport is, we've still I can retire,
but you can still race from heaps of different things.
Still do 2 or 3 rounds a year, or a bit of GT racing or something.
Yep.
But the racing's one bit, but just getting out with my mates, on a go-kart day, we're all just ripping around a go-kart track. That
must be fun, because it's fun. It's just I can imagine the banter and stuff that would go on would be immense.
It is. It's honestly, it's seriously good fun. Like when you're racing professionally, and it's all about every single second of that time you're on the track is on the stopwatch. There's you're having fun, but you're having twice as much fun with your mates, ripping around a go-kart track, But then again, you don't get the what do you call it? The satisfaction of
the wins and stuff like that.
Yeah, what do you call that? The purpose, what I mean? You don't get purpose racing a go-kart or with your mates around the circuit. You're having a lot of fun.
Yep.
But certainly racing career and operating the team, that's that gives you a huge amount of purpose.
So I guess obviously talking about the cars and getting 1% out of all them, but obviously it comes down to the driver as well, and mentally preparing yourself for those races. Is the things I would love to know would be, is there silly little traditions that you do, or superstitious stuff that you'd be like, hey, I got to wear these socks because I race with these socks every day, or is it something like that you do, or is it I'm listening to music before I go in, or the night before I go swimming at the beach, or what is it like? Is there something in particular that you're like, this is how we do it?
Well, consistency is key. So whether you call that a superstition or not, I think there are superstitions for sure. But you want to be consistent. You want to make sure that on race day you're doing exactly the same as what you've done. You've trained for it. You've prepared for it. There's no surprises, so to speak, in saying that though. In any competition, it's always curveball, and it's generally the people that can handle that curveball better than anybody else who generally ends up on the top step of the podium. But as far as getting an edge on your opposition, for me it was about doing the work. You've gone through scenario A, B, C, D, and you've gone there as fit as you possibly can, as mentally prepared. You've done more laps in your head than anybody else. Then that gives you a mental advantage. Well, that's certainly for me. That gave me a mental advantage. I honestly believed. I didn't know what my opposition were doing, but I'd come into a race weekend honestly believing that no one's worked harder than me, and no one deserves to win this weekend more than I did. Whether that was right or wrong, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's how you set your frame of mind up.
Well, but it wasn't artificial. I honestly believe that no one's trained harder, done more preparation, and done more mental laps, whether it be on a simulator or watching video or just lying there before you go to sleep, just doing laps in your head. I honestly believe that no one did that more than I did. So I'd get there with this sense of confidence that if the situation's hard for me, it's going to be twice as hard for somebody who hasn't done as much prep as what I have. So with
that's interesting you say about the simulation. Is that something that you would do just to memorise tracks and corners? So you're basically working out turning points and the apex of every track and working out through that. Is that sort of what you do the simulation for mainly?
Yeah, you're mainly getting the muscle memory. And simulators are getting better. And in F1, the simulators are that accurate that you can actually you can do testing. You can actually test the car setup and test lines
amazing,
and whatnot. But really, for us, you can't really get much of that.
Do you have one at home? Is it something you use at home, or?
Well, that's come in the last sort of 5 years, so to speak. And, you know, a lot of the supercar drivers now in the last 5, maybe 10 years, heavily rely on simulators. But that was a little bit before my era.
It's funny, like, obviously it sounds real geeky, but I've got a simulator but with VR, and it's amazing that obviously with the screen you can't see depth perception, so you always overshoot the corner. But with VR you can see it, and you can, like, you literally, it's amazing the difference now, and you actually feel like it makes you feel a little bit sick after half an hour or so of racing. But that depth perception is amazing. It's amazing how much better you are once you sort of realise that. It's amazing, that technology there.
It's coming along. So the kids these days, they do a heap of work on the simulator. You know, where I was never big on sim or computer games. I'd be out in
you got a go-kart.
I'd be go-kart or something like that. You know
how
what I mean? I was trying to get out in the real world and have that real element of, if you get it wrong, it's gonna hurt. You know. But being mentally prepared, ready to go for the weekend, physically prepared, and then going out there and executing. And of course, everyone's got doubts. You know, there's a thousand messages in your brain, you know, trying to tell you you haven't prepared well, you haven't done this. You know, your opposition is stronger than you. You know, what have you missed? And then there's that one little voice that says, no, you are the best. You are good to go. You can do this, and it's just a matter of making sure you just listen to that one voice and blocking out that 1,000 other, and having the confidence that it's going to go well. It's going to be a good day.
I'm sure there's lots of superstitious stuff out there that guys do. I know that obviously not racing, but when I was younger, working on a tuna boat, skipper used to make us throw salt over our shoulder 3 times before we went to sea, and no bananas and all these stupid things. It didn't do any good. We still was no luck. Didn't catch nothing. But the thought was there. But it's amazing how you get that, you know, you sort of look at that. Is that the mental part where you're trying to train your brain thinking, hey, I've done this purpose of this superstitious thing that I've done, and now I know that I'm going to be right because I've done this, you know, the outcome's there. So
well, sport's massive. Everything's massively mental. More
because the pressure is so much. Like, this is the thing, like, mentally you got all this pressure on your shoulders to perform, you know, and the thing is, you know, if you stuff up, you're not just letting yourself down, but obviously your team and everything else. Like, that's a lot to carry, you know.
Oh yeah, no, and you're not too. You're almost more concerned about the teammates than you are yourself. You know, 100%. But no. It's sport is massively mental. So you're doing the same thing, having a routine.
Preparation. I love that idea of preparation. That's really cool.
Yeah, getting in the car knowing that you've done everything you can, that mentally, for me, gave me an edge. I went out there and there were no negative thoughts. I wasn't thinking about, what if I miss my brake marker? What happens if I did this? What happens if I did that? I was just fully focused on.
I'm not going to happen.
How can I? Hey, I've done a 1012.2. How do I get to 111.9? How do I get there? What do I need to do? I didn't quite get it right on that corner. Let's just keep pushing. There's no speedo in the car. Not once I thought, how fast am I going, or looking at a speed. All I was trying to do was just find another 10th or
with the edge,
or whatever.
How close can I get?
How can I push this a little bit longer for a little bit harder for a little bit longer?
So, is there a car that you have that you drive on weekends? You know, is there something that you're looking at planning to get in the future? Like, is there anything around the outside of racing, or is it pretty much racing for you in your head?
Well, to be honest, up until now, I've just focused on racing. I love race cars, building, designing race cars. So that's been but as far as road cars are concerned, I was a Holden guy growing up. Dad always had Fords, but my first car was a Holden. So that
must have been quite funny, family dynamics. Ford, and he would have been like, "What are you doing?"
No. I don't know how it all ended up, but I just had this. When I got my license, it was the VT Commodore, and I just loved the thing and brought a VT. So I've always had this want to be able to have a race car for the road. I've had an opportunity to drive the race car on the road a few times, whether it's just a simple track to town experiment or something. Yep. We went to a mining town in WA. Don't ask me what it's called, but we got an opportunity just to drive the race car around the track. It was under police escort, but But the copper at one stage was like, just go past, just have a go, mate, have a go. And I literally driving this race car on the road, that was pretty cool. It was one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah, cool.
So I've got this. A race car's unique. It's a raw beast, so to speak. All the supercar road cars now they're quite a nice refined car built for the road. Where supercar's just a raw beast. It's angry. It's angry. It's trying to spit you off the road. Where a road car's trying to keep you on, keep you safe. So no. So
you don't get the same buzz. You look at the cars as sort of more of a tool to get you from point A to point B. And nothing
and you enjoy the acceleration and the handling and the experience and whatnot. But you don't get that joy of a supercar on the road. So I'd love one day to be able to make turn a VT Commodore into a race car and have it be able to be road registered legal to be able to drive around the road. So
that'd be funny. With the wing at the back flying around.
Haven't done it yet, and I don't think it'll happen for a little bit. But one day, I want to be able to literally have a raw supercar for the road. That would be fantastic.
So it sounds like pretty much your hobby is like obviously with go-karting once a month and bits and pieces. That I guess your passion with racing is still part of your hobbies as well as what you do. Because it's your interest, I guess. It always has been.
Yeah, I do love things, mechanical things.
Is there anything else that you do, or obviously you mentioned jet skiing. Obviously, you like jet skiing and bits and pieces.
Yeah, probably my latest hobby is kite surfing.
Oh, I definitely tried that. I got skull dragged up the beach big time. Like it's wild.
Hard. To be honest, I didn't really have much respect for the wind, so to speak. Got a lot of respect for the water, being out in the jet ski and the power of, you only got to stand on the beach and get hit by a wave, understand the power of water. But I didn't have any appreciation of the power of wind until I went kite surfing, and man, you can get picked up and spat out so fast.
It's funny, the first kite, I had it and I was like, and I did it probably half a dozen times. And obviously it was hard judging the wind because obviously you go out where you've got a sail that's set for say 20 knots and then it starts blowing up with gusts of 30, 40. Man, it's a completely different story. Like, and next minute you're like just doing these little jumps. Next minute I'm literally in the sky flying away and I'm like, how do I stop this thing?
Well, that's why
it's crazy.
That's kite surfing is expensive because you need 4 or 5 different kites. Exactly. As soon as the wind gets up another 5 knots, you need another $2,500 kite. So it's an expensive sport, but up here's ideal, like the sunny coast.
Yeah, it's good, especially in the passage. So in the passage is good, with clean water and stuff like that. You've got those spots.
So I got this love of kite surfing. Not very good at it, but certainly got a love for it.
Yeah, cool. That's cool. That's definitely interesting.
I spent the first 40 years of my life, hating wind. You want to go to the beach or whatever you want to do.
Not wind.
Gee, I wish there was no wind, but now I'm just hanging. I'm just looking at my willy weather, trying to. It's wind's on today. Let's get to the.
I'll tell you, there's something that I was pretty keen to have a look at trying is they do the hydrofoil, but with a little sail they hold with one hand. I don't know what it's called. I think it's foil sailing or something like that. And it looks pretty cool because they can go out, ride the waves in, and they use this little sail to pull them back out again. But it looks pretty cool.
So someone's trumped that. They've literally got like a electric motor.
Yeah, I've had one of them.
On the mast, in the middle of the mast.
I did one of them. And I used to use it actually at night time going through like the passage and stuff like that. And it was amazing. You'd be cruising along, next minute you'd hit like a school of fish or a shark or something. Next minute you just go flying off through. And it's because it's so quiet. It's just so quiet and so good, and you just cut through. But the thing that with that, this is not real relevant, but something that I noticed when I was hydrofoiling, you would come in over like a sandbank and you'd be finding, you come up the sandbank, but you get that falling effect where it will push you off the sandbank. And that's cool. So you never actually technically hit it. You think you would just go straight in the sand, but it doesn't. It pulls you up like a wing.
The thrust off the bottom. We had that
ground effect.
We had that wake surfing behind a boat as well. So you got the boat that's only going 12 kilometers an hour or something, and it's creating a big wave out the side, and you basically
surfing.
Wake surf, and then all of a sudden the wake would drop, the surf wave would just half, and then you look at your depth meter, and you're in only 1.5 meters of water, and boom, it's the props pushing off the bottom and lifting the back of the boat out of the water.
Yeah, it's crazy how it works, isn't it?
And then how much bigger wave you get in the fresh water compared to the salt, because the salt was more buoyant. It's quite cool.
It's funny you talk about things like jet skis and stuff like that. Like, obviously, water's my passion. Like, I love cars and I've loved working on them, but on weekends I sort of need that break from cars, because as a kid it was all hobby and that's all that I ever did. And then obviously doing it all the time, you definitely need, I think, separation at some point from that to get the passion back in it. And so I love the water. So skis and boats, they're all my thing. I love that sort of stuff. But it's still same sort of thing, still engines, still making them go faster, still playing with all that sort of stuff. But obviously it's done in a way where I've got the water,
And I think you got to get away from it, to make sure that hunger is still there.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I 100% agree with what you're saying. Every year I disappear for a month, and anyone that wanted to talk race cars or anything like that over my Christmas period, I'll be shutting them down. I don't want to know about it. I just want to go out and go, I've got a boat on the Murray River to go water skiing for a month, get away from motorsport, and then of course recharge the batteries, and then get back into it.
See, for me it would be like even the boat, like I got lots of mates that go fishing and so forth, and I love fishing, but I couldn't care if I didn't catch any fish. I just love being on the water with the boat. I like the whole boat thing, what I mean? Like I really do. But it's just one of those things that I think being on the water, something about it that is really relaxing and calming, and that's what I love about it. It takes it away. All right, so I just want to end with this one last little thing to do, which is a rapid fire the boys here have put together. So little questions that I'm going to ask you, and you've got a second to answer them. So I've got 17 of them all up. So
go easy.
You ready? You ready? All right, so Holden or Ford?
Holden.
Beach or pool?
Beach.
Petrol or diesel?
Petrol.
Land Cruiser or Patrol?
Land Cruiser.
Pizza or steak?
Pizza.
Good choice, Barra or LS?
What was that?
Barra or LS engines?
LS.
LS, I was going to say you have to say LS, surely.
Of course.
Red Bull or Coke? That's going to be a
silly
given.
question.
Beach holiday or snow holiday?
Oh, I like both, but probably beach.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Manual or auto?
Manual.
Yep. Morning or night?
Morning.
Circuit racing or street racing?
Circuit.
Hill climb or drag?
I'll say hill climb.
Yep, okay.
I haven't done many hill climbs, but love it.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Turbo or supercharger?
Oh, supercharger. Don't ask me why.
Because you just want instant
it's
power.
There. It's there.
Yeah, definitely. I'd probably, I can see that. SUV or sedan?
SUV.
Getting old. SUV.
I'm getting old.
Ocean or mountains?
The ocean.
Yep. Helmet or cap?
Helmet.
There you go. Done. Mate, well, thanks very much for coming on. It's been awesome to have you here, so appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.
All the best.
Looking forward to what we can do in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
All right, I hope you guys all enjoyed that podcast. I know I really did. Jamie Whincup's a pretty hard one to beat, so let us know who you'd like to see on our podcast moving forward. And please like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.